I'm Will,
And I'm Steven.
and this is the
This is
Post
the
P
Post Beat
Chronicles.
Chronicles.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.
So, Steven, who do we have with us today?
We have someone I've actually known for probably over 10 years now, and I'm just finding out his story, so I'm excited to hear it today. A Fresno native, Sean Hatcher. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Dude, guys, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. This sounds like it's going to be a great opportunity, man. Plus,
So,
I've known you for well over a decade, and I mean, you don't really do anything like half and half. You're all in. So I'm excited, man. Yeah. This
Story of my life.
dude
Hey,
don't
we're
mess
excited
around
to
with no
be here.
lukewarm water. You know what I mean? He's all in.
Yeah, you definitely know Steven because he do not have to do nothing. Well, definitely welcome to the show. So, I mean, Sean, well, tell us your story. Where are you from?
So originally, I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I got two brothers. My dad was a teacher, a professor, right? So he was teaching at Johns Hopkins.
Wow.
He wrapped up everything out there, got a job at Fresno State, and that's how our family landed in Fresno, California.
What age were you when you came to Fresno?
So I was about 3 years old. So pretty much my whole life has been in Fresno. We did a lot of traveling back and forth to see family when we were younger and stuff like that. But then my parents divorced when I was about 14 years old. Things started to fall apart a few years before that. So mainly just a Fresno boy.
Well, let's talk about that. Growing up in Fresno, some people are like, Fresno's the most ghettoest place in the world. Some people are like, oh, you're from North Fresno, it's the nice part. How was it for you growing up in Fresno? What did that look like?
So growing up in Fresno for me, I was pretty fortunate. The first few years we were here, we were in some like lower income apartments next to Fresno State. A few years after that, my parents got their first home here in Fresno. My dad teaching at Fresno State, the professor's salary is decent even back in 1980. So they got their first home, which is right off of First and Knees behind Kasner, which is this intermediate school. Here's the thing though, right now today, the city has developed like all around. When we moved out there, literally, Steve, you'll know this, like, right? So where First and Knees was, it was just orchards all the way out. Clovis West High School was there, but everything was orchards around it. None of these houses were here, none of the churches, nothing past North Shepherd.
So you grew up in the sticks of Fresno back in the day, because now it's all city.
So pretty much it was all orchards where we were. And then as the city developed and grew, my parents eventually moved us out to Madera Ranchos. And so I moved out to the Madera Ranchos, I think I was in about first grade or so, something like that. And so then I was in the Madera Ranchos up until the third grade. And then my parents put us in a private school. But group really like the first, whatever that is, first grade was at 7 to 8. So 7, 8 years in town, and then till I was about 18, 19 out in the country, being a country kid, getting in trouble, all that good stuff.
So I have a question. Your father worked at Johns Hopkins, professor at Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
Come to Fresno is a professor at Fresno State. Growing up with an intellectual, how was that? Like, did you every single day? Where's your homework? How was you in school? What was that like growing up with a father who was a professor?
My dad is extremely intelligent. He had a full ride scholarship to Johns Hopkins. He's got like 2 PhDs from there, like one in engineering, one in public health. Like he's very, very accomplished. So as a kid, like once I started to connect those dots of what Johns Hopkins was,
Yeah.
Because like elementary school, it's like you're just a little kid. Even though looking back, he was very what do you want to say? Very focused on schoolwork.
Mm-hmm.
So he was big shoes to fill. Once I realized like what his degree was, the work he had done. He also got his PhD at the age of 26. You know what I mean? And at 26, at 26, I was like face first in a pile of cocaine and drinking bottles of whiskey. You know what I mean? Like we complete opposite.
Completely different, right? Completely different.
But I would say it was rough, man. Looking back, he he tried to be present, but he was so hyper focused on his work that oftentimes he was working. And then he would get like, I'm a horrible speller, even to this day. Like I second guess myself. But he would wake me up at like 4 a.m. and make me write out spelling words that I missed. Like in the first and second grade, dude, like 3, 4 a.m. I'll never forget this. I misspelled of and off. And man, that was the one that put it over the edge. And I just remember crying at the kitchen table, having to write of and off for like hours on end. And
Wow.
you know, he would have his pot of coffee, and he was literally like, "No fucking son of mine's gonna misspell of and off."
Wow.
And oh yeah, no, and I even confronted him on that years later, in my early 40s, and he was like, you know, that never happened. You're imagining things. And I was like, well, check it out. Like, I spoke to mom, and mom vividly remembers it. And so at that point, he was like, he kind of like opened up about how he was a bad speller as a kid and whatever. I could give two shits about his bad spelling.
So I was going to say, it sounded like you had a great life growing up in private school in Madero Ranchos, but it sounds like your dad obviously made it a little harder than it needed to be.
Yeah.
You said they got divorced, but your life started to fall apart before that. Why was it falling apart before the divorce even happens?
So in about the first grade, unfortunately, I was molested by a family member, right? And that kind of set things in a bad kind of, I don't know what to say. I was in like the first grade. I stopped talking to my teachers. I started shitting myself in class. I got combative with male teachers, started hiding under like the desk. I actually ran away from school, like ran away, like took off down the street, ended up falling asleep underneath like an RV. And I'm actually the reason that Clovis Unified has fences around its elementary schools now.
Wow.
Because I just wandered off, and like the police were called and all that stuff. But shortly after that time period is when we moved out to Madera. So for me, things got pretty rocky around like kindergarten to first grade area. I remember, you know, like, unfortunately, there was just a lot of arguing in my family. My dad was he was a yeller. There was times that our neighbors called the police because he was yelling so loud, like when we lived in the city. Obviously, out in Madera, like you can yell to your heart's content, no one's gonna hear you. But that was definitely having a dad that was a little abusive was hard, especially because even later in life he completely denies like even spanking his kids, which is fucking insane.
It's like, what is going? Are we living in two different worlds? So, what was your mom doing at this time? You know, your dad was tough. What was your mom like?
So my mom's a saint, right? Got her master's degree at University of Michigan as a social worker. So that's like one of the top social working schools in the nation. I have two very hyper focused professional parents. So my mom, unfortunately, when I first brought all this up with her, she had a very hard time accepting it, because as a social worker, like she feels she should have seen it, like she should have picked up on it, like not on my watch, not in my house, type thing. So unfortunately, but I mean, she'll say that, but at the same time, like I remember her vividly, like arguing and like them screaming back and forth. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because my mom just really like doesn't talk about it. And it's only been lately that like myself and my brother have been like talking to her about things, and she's began to open up about, you know, oh man, your dad was, you know, screaming at me like before you were born type stuff. So it was probably one of those things where she knew she had to leave, but it just took a lot. And being an East Coast family, like what options do you have as a woman in 1985, 86 in Fresno, California, when you don't have a job and you're raising your kids?
And divorce is pretty it's pretty rare back then. There wasn't just like, oh, everyone gets divorced like today. Like back then, you stayed together.
No, definitely. So that kind of shook up the childhood a lot. And I mean, I remember being on family vacations with my dad, just screaming at him at like 14 years old. You know, like, um, man, it was a rough childhood. Like, it sounds good, I think, in growing up in Madera, like these two like very successful, educated parents, but it's just one of those things like you don't know what goes on once that
Behind
door
closed
closes on
doors.
the house.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's why I'm a big believer in like every now and then I want to pop off at somebody, you know, for doing something. And I got to remind myself, like, I don't know the day they're having. I don't know their upbringing. And I certainly can't be judging somebody on their decisions when I have no idea the choices that were available to them, you know? So
One thing
it's
that no, go
it
ahead.
created a good mindset.
Yeah. So one thing I like to do, Sean, is when I'm talking to guests, and we go through a lot of things when we're kids, and we don't realize when we're kids how to deal with it, right? But now that you're grown and you can look back, like you said, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So what can we do to ask the tough questions to kids, or what can a parent do to ask their kids, like, hey, what's going on, or like how can you help someone read hearing your story right now that may be going through something that you went through?
Like as the parent or like as the kid.
Well, let's take it as the parent. If you're a parent and like you said, your mom, I should have known. I'm a social worker. I should have known what my son was going through. How did I miss it? But a parent who's not a social worker, who didn't go to Michigan State and get a degree and a master's degree in social work, and she's just working really hard, right? What signs can she look for?
So I just happen to know that like when a kid is like physically or sexually abused, that's obviously a pretty extreme,
Mhm.
especially depending on how far it goes. So for me, there's like obvious signs. Like I started shitting in the house
Yeah.
because it happened in the shower. So I literally started shitting in the shower.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So like obviously somebody had to clean that up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's gonna be signs like dramatic swings in behavior.
Right.
Um, shitting yourself in public or going back to that, like pooping yourself as you sleep. Like
Hmm.
those are actually signs of severe trauma. Like something's really
Even
messed up.
running away from school and your grades drastically tanking. I think that's even a common sign, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Especially as you get later in your education, where like the social aspect really kicks up, to where you have those closer relationships with your friends. I mean, kindergarten, first grade, you take off running from school. It's not like you have really deep friendships. But when you
Right.
see that stuff, especially in junior high and high school, where like they just completely zone out, drop their friends, their friend or their grades start to drop, that's typically an indication that something's not right. I mean, I even remember in high school writing short stories where like everybody would die, and then my teacher would come up and be like, "Yo, so about your story, everything okay at home?" Like, but back then I was just be like, "Yeah, everything's cool, everything's fine," because that was my normal. So I
Mm.
think that's a big thing too for like at on the child aspect. If that's all you know, that is your norm.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not till later in life that you start to realize, like, oh shit, like that should have never happened.
Right.
Um, and it's difficult when you live in the country because it is kind of isolated, right? So you're
Mhm.
not spending a lot of time at the neighbor's house. You're not, over at a best friend's house all the time because they're literally like a mile down the street type thing. Um, so the isolation part just adds like an extra layer to it.
Right.
But once you get to that age where you start, like for me, it was like in my 20s and mainly my 30s when my friends got married and
Mm.
I started seeing them interact with their wives. And then they started having kids and I started seeing how they treated their kids. And I mean, I didn't even start dating until I was 35 because I wanted nothing to do with having a family. I mean, there was booty calls, but that
You're
was
right.
about the extent
Right.
of, yeah.
But no
So
dating.
yeah,
Mm.
like man, like I was just so turned off from a family or anything like that it wasn't until my buddy started having kids, man, and one in particular, I was there when his daughter was born, and
Mm.
like I was at school and I rushed right over, and I think I was like the third person to hold her. It was like mom, dad, me, minus the doctor and nurse,
Wow.
and so I'm like holding this like 27-minute old baby in my arm, and I just start breaking down crying, dude. And I'm like, holy shit, like I fucked up. Like I was meant to be a dad,
Mm.
you know? So I would say one thing while it's on my mind, if someone younger is watching this and for some reason they thought like myself where I'm not going to get married. I gave a thumbs up. Oh, that's funny. Um, I'm not going to get married or I'm not going to have children as a way of like punishing your parents, because my mindset for the longest time was they don't deserve grandchildren.
Mm.
But really, all that did in the long run, right? In my 20s, I was like, yeah, fuck them. They don't deserve grandchildren. But now in my 40s, I'm like, damn, all I did was deprive myself of that joy and happiness and love.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So let's backtrack now. Your parents got divorced.
Yeah.
Let's say some people are like, oh my gosh, it's traumatic. Some people are like, hallelujah, my parents were a mess. You're already
It
going
just got
through.
worse.
I mean, you're already pooping yourself. You're having trouble in school. You're running away. You have the sexual trauma issues. You're living in the country. Now your parents get divorced. What's going on now?
Okay. So when my parents got divorced, they had the worst schedule known to man. It was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at my mom's house. Thursday, Friday, Saturday at my dad's house. Alternating Wednesdays. So, yeah. So my dad set that up. And my mom just, I think she was so sick and tired of arguing, she just accepted it. So my mom never had a weekend with us.
Mm.
Wow.
Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at my dad's. We got dropped off Sunday at 12:01. So my mom got us on Sunday, school night. Never had a weekend with my mom. That's crazy shit, right? Like, you go week to week, man. Like, anyway. There's a lot of shit you put together later in life. Like, when you're 14 and you're forced to do this, it's like, whatever. But looking back on it, you're like, that was stupid. Like, I don't know how y'all have those degrees and thought this was, like, the best option.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. I have a friend who, same thing, he went through a divorce and his custody is like 1 week on, 1 week off, but the mom's super relaxed and then he's super strict. And so the kids like can't, right when they're adjusting, they go back to the other extreme. And right when they're adjusted, they go back to the other extreme. And the kids are just an emotional mess and a wreck because they can't find an equilibrium in their life. Now you're 14 going through that, every other alternating Wednesday, and you got this weird schedule. It's a school night at my dad's house. Now it's a school night at my mom's house. How does that work out?
It was rough, to say the least, man, because there was never a sense of being home, right? Because in essence, every 72 hours you're moving. So you take away that feeling of of home. So it's like, even as an adult today, man, like there's shit on the walls, you know what I mean? Like I don't really decorate that much. Like my house is pretty barren type thing, and I think that just comes from always having a house, never having a home. You know what I mean?
Definitely. So let's fast forward to 18, 19. I know you get to 26, you said you had a face full of cocaine, but right before those years, you graduate high school, you are no longer under the regime of your mother and father. What do you do as a free man at 18, 19? What's going on? How's your life?
So I actually took my California high school proficiency exam when I was 16 as a sophomore. So I dipped out of high school in 1998 versus 2000. So I started going to City College because that was what my parents told me. They're like, you're either going to get a job or go to City College. And I was 16, so I went to City College.
Right.
Managed to get like all D's, pretty much. Just complete trash. I think I
no
ended
C,
up
like not one.
Yeah, no, I had a .89 GPA.
Oh my goodness. Yikes.
So
With a professor father and a master's degree
I'm
mother.
sure they love that.
They love that.
Well, at this point, we're not sharing that shit, bro. They ain't no fucking report cards coming home. You know, you know what I mean. So I do the city college thing, and so I have an older brother who, for the majority of his life, has cultivated marijuana. So I'm 18 years old, and there's this opportunity to go live in London, England for 6 months through City College.
Wow.
So right next to London is Europe, where marijuana is legal and you can buy seeds and all that shit. So I somehow at I wasn't even 18 yet, I'm 17. And I convinced my parents that they should pay for the semester abroad in London. And they're all about it. They think
Don't
it's
you
a
have to
great
have good grades to get accepted abroad? How do you do that with a D average?
You do. But luckily they looked at the last semester before all the D's, which was all PE classes. So we were coming in strong.
Coming in literally. Coming in strong.
So I end up in London, England from like February to July.
At 17 years old.
Yeah, well, I turned 18 in March.
18.
So by the time I'm there, I turn 18, have some pints with the boys. It's going great. Meanwhile, I spend my weekends collecting marijuana seeds to smuggle back into America. Because my brother, again, is involved in the marijuana business. And I'm like, hey, I can go to London, England. I can get to the Sensi seed bank, and I can pick up any seed that you need that you can't get in America.
Mm.
And so I end up like smuggling several hundred seeds back. I stitched them into my clothing. So the main purpose of me going there, besides for, having a great time in London, England, was to get all these seeds and bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring all those back, and that pretty much is what got me into the marijuana business.
Now let's keep in mind real quick, this is probably 2000, 2001, where marijuana in California is still very illegal. And
Yeah.
And so it's not
this
just
is
something that's just like a hobby back then. It's a full-on felony. And obviously I want to stop and point out you're getting into trouble, and it sounds like your brother has the same upbringing as you. And it doesn't sound like he's exactly a John Hopkins scholar either. So
No,
your
we
brother
have, like,
seems to be in the same boat as you.
Yeah, we have an identical upbringing almost. So he went through a lot of the same traumas I did, but to a more extreme extent, because there's a 10-year difference between my age and his. So unfortunately, he just he got a lot more shit thrown on him.
So now you guys are in the weed business together. What's that look like?
So pretty much, so I get back. Is it 1999, 2000? It's right around like 1999, 2000. It's pre 9/11, because I don't know if I would have smuggled them back post 9/11. Things changed.
They wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah, right. Hey, when that drug dog came by, man, my heart stopped.
Beating.
But apparently, the dogs can't smell seeds.
Lucky.
So that dog went right by me, man. Yeah, no, it was crazy. So I end up getting hooked up with a couple lights, some plants, all that stuff. And this is about 2003. So I'm selling weed and some other things like Vicodin and shit like that at the time. And I managed to buy a house with a stated income loan in 2003.
Also selling weed from seeds from London? You smuggled from London?
Yeah. So at the age of 18, I started selling weed. Right. So that, and it was really, really good weed, because I had my older brother who was growing some just.
He knew what he was doing. Right.
Yeah. This was back when weed was going for like $400 an ounce.
Yeah. Oh my good Lord.
Yeah. Like just over the top, bro. Shit, where was I going?
You bought a house.
No, you just got a home.
Just got the home. Yeah. So 2003, just get the home, stated income. So you don't have to verify your income. You just tell them what you make. Yep. That was back when strippers were buying like 8 or 9 houses.
Wow.
Yeah, so I ended up with this house. I
What
know
are you,
exactly
20 years
what I
old at this point?
2003, so I'm 22.
22.
Yeah.
Nice. House at 22. Very nice.
Yes. Really
Yeah.
nice.
And I immediately put up a grow room inside that house.
Of course.
So, yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah. So I put like 3,600 watts in the master closet and get that going. And pretty much that's, for the most part, got me into the marijuana business, being able to sell pounds at a time, things like that. Unfortunately, though, everything was going good till about 2006 on June 6th, when a search warrant was served on the property. Yeah, and they weren't too happy. They came in with
Not at all.
automatic weapons and all that. I was taking shit, dude, and they waited for my roommate to leave, pulled him over, got his house keys, opened the front door, and came in. So it was a what do you call it? A no knock warrant.
No,
So
yeah. Man. So what do? Okay, so they take you out the house, they serve you a warrant. You got a whole house full of weed, some London Kush.
So I get extremely lucky when they come in. And I had just taken down my last harvest, sold it all, and I got 26 pot plants in red Solo cups with one live one. And so they get there and they're like, where's the weed? Where's the guns? Where's the money? And at the time, all the weed was sold. I had just made my house payments. So I only had about $700 cash on me.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and there's no cocaine or anything like that. There's no guns or anything like that. As it turned out, I got snitched out by a
Of
guy
course.
I worked for. Yeah.
Of course.
So we'll keep his side of this short. Dude loved cocaine and other drugs. Got really fucked up, threw his wife down a flight of stairs. She broke her collarbone on the way down. He called me, wanted me to like say I was there and that I saw her trip and that she like accidentally went down the stairs. Unbeknownst to him, my cousin was murdered in a domestic violence altercation like several years before that. She was like stabbed 36 times in front of her kids by her husband. So I go into the other room where his wife is and I'm like, check it out. This is what you actually need to do. Like you need to talk to the police. You need to tell them what happened because my cousin was in a situation like this and she's fucking dead. So
it's not going to end well for you if you stay in this relationship.
And luckily in the state of California, even if you don't feel like pressing charges, if an officer sees a woman all beat up, like they can make the call themselves to take that guy to jail. Yeah. So that's how the warrant, they got the warrant. They had a CI who happened to be this dude. I guess his family members or whatever. But so they serve the warrant. I get arrested for cultivation of marijuana, cultivation with intent to sell, and then like misdemeanor possession of marijuana for like the couple ounces I have or at the time.
How much time did they hit you with?
What's that?
How much time did they hit you with that?
So I show up to court and the DA asked for 7 years. Yeah, dude, like pretty, they're coming in pretty hot. 7 years. I mean, but back then it's 2006, 2007.
Right.
It's not 2024. They are definitely just nailing people to the wall for anything they can. And the state has a shit ton of money in 2006. This is back when COs were clocking like 280,000 with overtime.
Oh, they getting it. Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
So like literally they were leaving the line on for the whole entire state if you wanted to stop in. So their first thing is 7 years. So obviously I get a lawyer, all that good stuff. The judge ends up sending me on the 90-day op before sentencing. So I ended up being in custody for like 7.5 months before I actually ever gotten sentenced. So I get arrested. They try to get me to turn in everybody I know, which at that time I knew quite a few people who were in the business, and I just kept my mouth shut. That's always been kind of my philosophy, you know.
It's a good philosophy.
Yeah, man, because hey, you don't want to have to look over your shoulder the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like that's just ridiculous. Plus, I'm the one who put myself in that position, so
Yeah.
it is what it
I'm,
is.
I mean, to each their own, but I definitely agree with you. I think that someone who uh testifies to a crime that they're not a part of, that's your civic duty, right? That is your civic duty. If my mom sees a crime, mom, go do what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah,
But if I am a participant in a crime, myself, I'm not going to go tell on someone else to get off of the crime that I did,
yeah.
right? This is what I did. And that's just integrity to me. That's integrity, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm in the car with you and you go rob, the liquor store because I thought we was about to go get some Reese's, I'm like, what? I ain't do that. You did that. Say what? Shoot. Hey, look,
I
man,
was
I
hungry.
want to go get some Reese's. This dude want to go rob the place. I don't know what's wrong with him.
Yeah.
Different story. Different story. So they give you a 90-day op.
Yeah.
90-day
Here I
option.
am.
How was that?
So, dude, here I am, like, legitimately now. I was in trouble once before when I was
Mhm.
18, 19 years old. I'd come back from London, got a couple roommates. We had a house. We had one plant with one light, but we were selling, like, Norcos and meth and a bunch of shit that we should not have been doing, man, unfortunately. We got nailed back then, and I was put on PC 1000. Thank God that court record remains sealed. And so when I got in trouble in 2006, it wasn't on the record because that would have changed everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, big time. Because at the age of 19, 20 years old, I picked up like 7 felonies. And it was like felony possession of methamphetamine, felony possession of cocaine, felony possession with intent to sell, both counts. So now we're at 4. There's a felony cultivation charge, felony possession charge, and then a misdemeanor hypodermic needle possession.
Wow.
One
I
of my
didn't know they
roommates was
did that.
shooting new baby. So
Misdemeanor hypodermic needle. I'm diabetic. What you mean? I got.
it was a big needle, though. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm a big diabetic.
I'm a big guy.
So Sean, what was those 7 months in jail like for you?
So in total, I ended up doing closer to like 400 days. So I did 10 months like straight, was able to get out for a work program. And then I, gave the finger to the work program. And wouldn't you know, they came and got me. And next thing you know, I was back in jail. And then I messed up a few times while I was on probation. And so they would just throw you in there and you see the judge when you see the judge, whether it's 20 days or 45. And that's just how that goes. So, but when I first got there, like I said, like I got arrested briefly in 2001. And my buddy bailed me out that night, right? So now I get arrested for the cultivation charge. I go before the judge. He says they're doing a 90-day op. And so now I get arrested and there's nobody bailing me out. So I get put into Fresno County Jail. And I was there for 3 days, and the bus comes from Wasco, and I get shipped out to Wasco. And everybody in my pod was telling me, "Oh, bro, you're going to be here for a month or two. Like, it takes them such a long time." And I'm over here like, thank God. Like, I watched that series Oz, like the whole time I was going to court, which probably wasn't the best thing to fucking do. So like, I'm like, cool. If I got a couple months in county jail, awesome. And like day one, I go to change the TV and almost get my ass kicked, right? Because there's only like 5 white people in this pod. Everyone else is like Mexican or brother or paisa. And I'm over here trying to, anyway, yeah. So you don't touch the TV. So I almost get my ass beat like in the first fucking hour and a half I'm there. So, but luckily I got a mouthpiece, so I'm like, whoa, like, hold up, bro. Like, I didn't know. I just rolled in. Like, paper check me. Look at this cultivation marijuana. Come on now. Like, easy does it, bro. Like,
I got you.
I'm not
I got you.
You know what I mean? Like, here, take my coffee. Leave me the fuck alone, bro. Like, and so 3 days goes by, and my name gets called. And I won't even lie about it, dude. They called my name at 2 a.m. to get on that bus. And
Oh, yeah.
the guys are waking me up. They're like, hey, bro, like, they called your name. And dude, my hand just started shaking. Like, because you have to get all your shit off your rack, get your bunk. And dude, my hand just didn't stop shaking. It was so crazy. And I'm like grabbing my stuff and my hand's just shaking as I'm putting it into the bag. Because like, God, I was scared shitless. I didn't know what it was going to be like or anything like that, you know?
Or you had an Oz imagination though.
Yeah, bro. I just watched the episode of Oz where the dude gets like crucified to the floor type thing in the basketball. Yeah. I'm not about it, man. Like, do not watch Oz if you were going to trial, man. Watch Prison Break. Watch some shit where they get out. You know, don't watch Oz.
Prison Break.
Yeah, don't. Maybe watch the end of the Shawshank Redemption. Don't watch the middle.
Man.
So they put us all in a cell, and we gotta like hang out for a little bit. The bus gets there, we all jump on, you know. The fucking CO stop and get, you know, Starbucks on the way to Wasco. So, and then you get to Wasco, and that's just humbling's not the word. Humiliating's the word. Because you get like strip searched, right? And yeah, so if you've never had the pleasure of being in a room filled with a bunch of dudes you don't know who smell, and now you're butthole naked with someone telling you to like spread your cheeks, squat down, and cough, it is just a different experience altogether.
Yeah.
Again, one I don't recommend.
Yeah.
So I go through the reception part, and the only funny part was I get up to this the officer, and he happens to be a brother, and he's like, "You still white?" And I'm like, yeah, like, yeah.
Last time I checked.
He's like, "Who are you rolling with?" I'm like, he's like, "All right, you're still white." and so then we go. I meet my cellie, the guy that's going to be sharing the cell with me, man. And, you know, they say we're going to B yard, and he just freaks out. He's like, "Bro, what are you in for? Like, I'm not supposed to be on this yard. That's a PC yard." Like, demands my papers. Like, give him my papers. He's like, "You're on a 90-day fucking op. Like, I have no idea why we're going over here." So then we get to B yard, and it's explained to us that we're supposed to be on D yard, but there's a mechanical issue with the locks. They're popping open in the middle of the night. Right. Which probably isn't a good thing. So we're on B yard for about 7 or 8 days, and then we go back to D yard, which was a D3 212 up. And the one thing I remember, the first time I walked into the fucking yard was the sign that says "No warning shots will be fired," and that one stood out. Like, I don't know how serious they are about that, but again, I had watched Oz and some other shit on YouTube where like this dude's trying to escape prison and they straight shot his ass in the barbed wire fence. So I was inclined to believe the whole no warning shot.
No warnings, right?
Yeah. But then because an officer was attacked, we ended up being like on cell life for the whole entire time I was there. We had 1 yard where we got to walk around, and then 2 day rooms and 1 shower. Other than that, we were bird bathing the whole entire time. So,
man, I mean, that's an eye-opening experience, right?
No, like when that cell door shut behind me, because like it wasn't Gen Pop, right? Like it's actual cell. Like you can touch like both walls with your hands. I'm sure you know. And dude, like, I can't. When that door shut behind me, like I knew instantly, like this is not where I want to be. Right. This is not cool. This is not where I want to be. And then, you know, the whole time I was there, it's like you do your best to make the best of that experience. I was fortunate. My parents, my mom would put money on my books, but when you're on a 90-day op, you don't get to spend any money at commissary or anything like that. My dad sent me more books than you can imagine. He was like, "I'm not going to put money on your books. I'm not going to send you anything, but if you need some educational material, I will send it to you." So
that's
Engineering 101.
Books every single day while I was in prison, man. To the point where everyone started calling me professor, because literally they were like,
"That's my dad."
They were like, "This dude's got 35 books." Like I had a pillow made out of books, bro.
Man. So then let me let me ask you this, right? Because obviously this is an eye-opening experience. You never thought you'd be in this position, but you do find yourself in the position. And from everything you're saying, you learned a valuable lesson as soon as that door shut.
Yeah,
Right? As soon as that door shut, you learned your lesson.
100%.
Now, a lot of people learn their lesson when the door shuts and forgets it as soon as the door reopens. What is your story?
Okay, so I end up having to do, like 10 months in county jail. So
Mm-hmm.
go from Wasco back over to county jail, which coming from Wasco to county jail, a lot of shit changed. Now I can touch the TV
Mm-hmm.
because everyone in county jail has not been to prison. And it doesn't matter if you're on a 90-day op or not. If you've walked the yard and then you come to county jail, you're just like a level above everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So the next, those months afterwards, after I got back, I don't want to say they were easy, but they were doable. I got involved in a Bible study. I started working out twice a day. Um, I got some medical shit cleared up, so I was able to become a trustee. Started doing the breakfast every day, so I started getting more milks, more peanut butters. So I mean, I came out of county jail with 22-inch arms, bro. Like
Wow.
stacked, just doing chin-ups all day long, dude. Now, so I get out of county jail. I'm on felony probation for like 5 years. I end up messing up a few times. I give him a dirty test here, a dirty test there, and the judge is pretty lenient with me. And I have some great interactions with police officers over this time period. I got really lucky once, man. I should have ended up back in prison, or they should have at least sentenced me differently. I was at a party and I walk out drunk, and there's a domestic violence across the street. An officer sees me trip across the street, walks over and he says, "Hey man, it looks like you're drunk in public. Can I see your ID?" And next thing you know, he's like, "Oh shit, you're on felony probation. You're not even supposed to be drunk." I get patted down. And this is a true story. I went to my buddy's house to get a shit ton of cocaine. I did some cocaine in the house. I was so drunk, I threw up on myself. So he gives me a pair of pants to like wear home. So I got his pants on. As the
No
officer
cocaine.
pats me down, and he pulls out a bag from inside the pant pocket that's an empty Coke bag, and it's got residue in it. And he's like, "Oh, Hatch, what's this?" And I tell him, "These aren't my pants."
I know what it looks like, but I swear these are not my pants.
What?
That's not my cocaine. And so
What?
I swear to God, bro. So now I'm cuffed up in the back of this car.
Oh man.
Oh man, and my buddy had been arrested for like selling coke before, so they pull up his information because he owns the house, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this dude, we know all about him." So I'm like, "Cool." So it's just not looking good. On the way down to Fresno County Jail, I managed to convince the officer to pull over so I can have a cigarette, and I tell him I got a 7-year lid, bro. Like, this is a violation. Like, they're not going to let me out. This isn't a like piss and dirty type bullshit. Like, I got caught with cocaine. Like that, I'm fucked. So he pulls over, lets me out, handcuffs me in the front so I can have a cigarette, gives me the whole "if you take off running, I'll shoot you in the back" type thing, and just say that like you overpowered me, because this is before body cams. So I'm like, "Dude, we're chill. I'm smoking this cigarette, just bullshitting with this guy, having a great time." I forget that on the way out the front door, the bag of Coke that I bought, which was not the bag of Coke in my pocket, I securely tucked into my nutsack. So as I'm talking to this guy, enjoying this beautiful cigarette, a fucking like quarter of cocaine falls out of my fucking
Oh my
through the
God.
pants and lands next to my foot. And the dude flips his light on and he's like, "Hatcher, what the fuck is that?"
Oh my God. You
Bro,
got
and
to be
I take
kidding
one
me.
big drag from this cigarette and I'm like, "Shit, man, I don't know about you, but from this angle, it looks like about a quarter of cocaine."
What?
And I kick it over to him. He picks it up and he's like, how much did this cost you? I was like, I didn't buy anything. That was a gift.
What? What?
I mean, obviously
This
you're
is-
drunk, so I mean, I'll give you a pass for saying stupid stuff.
What?
So I'm laughing the whole time. And he's like, hey, man, you're lucky. Like, if we got this down at the station, that's another charge. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So I put the cigarette out. Fast forward 30 days. I see the judge. My lawyer comes in. And I'm like, I'm fucked, dude. They're going to give me 7 years. Like, there's nothing we can do. And he's like, let me talk to the judge real quick. Goes up, talks to him, comes back. The DA gets up. My probation officer's there. And this guy says, you know, Your Honor, we feel that Mr. Hatcher has spent enough time in county jail. We'd like you just to release him. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I look at my lawyer. I'm like, bro, what's going on? And he's like, I have no idea. The quarter ounce of cocaine never made it to the police station. It wasn't in the police report, wasn't in the anything. So I'm over here like, I had a quarter ounce of cocaine, and my lawyer is like, shut up.
Oh my goodness.
Like, whisper that because it's not in the report. So the cocaine disappeared. I don't know if it's because of my great personality or,
Probably.
you know, if the guy had other things he was up to that weekend, you know. But
Man.
yeah, so I actually, man, like I got really lucky there. Fast forward a few more years, man. I'm off felony probation. I managed to get a few DUIs in my life. You know, so I'm still like walking the line, and I end up going back into growing weed. And this time I got permits, and I am crossing my T's, dotting the I's.
Legally.
Yeah, legally, and end up with 108 lights in a warehouse. And that now is doing in excess of over $1 million a year.
What year is this?
This is 2012.
Wow.
So it wasn't legal. It was legal in the sense that my doctor said I could have up to 99.
For medical, right?
Yeah. Anything
Not
over
medical
99
permit,
is still
okay.
a felony. Yeah.
99 pounds?
99 plants.
Oh, I was
Anything
about to
over
say
99 plants was still considered a felony.
You had 108, you said?
108 lights. 108
99
1,000
plants.
watt bulbs. Yeah.
Now, in comparison, the first home that you bought in the master closet, how many lights was that?
3,600 watts. So
30. How many bulbs was that?
3 1,000s, 1 600.
And
You had
this
9,
one you have.
9. You got caught with?
Yeah, so that's what I got caught with was the 3 1,000s, a 600 with 26 pot plants in little cups. Now we have 108 1,000 watt lights and a couple hundred plants. I mean, we're in a warehouse. The air conditioner unit is the size of an 18-wheeler.
And you said $1 million a year?
$1 million plus, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So I had a couple business partners back then, and unfortunately, one of them decided to borrow money from a Mexican guy who was connected with a cartel, which he did not know, and then he tried to stiff the guy on the money. So we got out to the warehouse one day and discovered that all the employees had been tied up. All the plants were gone. All the weed was gone. And pretty much they told us that, hey, these guys showed up and like held us at gunpoint and took everything.
Wow.
And that was 2012. So at this point, I'm like, you know what, man? I'm going to go back to growing like 20 plants at a time. I'm good. Like, I've never had anything shot up. I've never had anyone tied up on me. Like, I am out of this. So I go back to just my operation, leave the two business partners, because things fell apart very quickly once, obviously, everything was taken, right?
Right, of course.
So this is where it actually gets a little interesting because I probably would have continued growing weed for the rest of my life.
This is where it gets interesting?
Buckle up.
Okay.
No, okay, so like, I just have that personality. So I've always had good interactions with police officers. I've been arrested multiple times, man. Was never tased, almost was tased, but like I just got that personality where like I don't know, things. I don't know, people tend to like me, right? Even correctional officers. So that shit goes down, and I realize I'm in over my head. I'm gonna go back doing what I was doing before. So I get another house, start growing some weed, and now I'm going to city college too. I'm taking a class here and a class there. Um, and so I'm doing this small grow with 6 1,000 watt lights, producing like 9 pounds every 60 days. So enough to live very comfortably.
Very comfortably.
Yeah, and go to school. And this is 2013, so the price is still fairly competitive with marijuana. It hasn't dropped to like $2 grand a pound. Um, dude, and out of nowhere, I just start to feel this conviction, like in my heart, like I need to walk away from this. And dude, the irony, right? So this was the time of my life. I'm living on my own. I'm growing all this weed, not as much as I was. I know I need to do something with my life. So I just spend my days like reading my Bible on my stairs. I live in a 2-story house by myself. So I would just sit there, read my Bible. And like eventually I started to get like a little lonely. And I'm like, man, like there's got to be something more than just living in a house by yourself growing weed. Right. And dude, over the course of time, there's just a conviction. And I'm at the gym one day, and this young man comes up to me, and he asks me for some advice, like with his relationship. And he approaches me and he says, as a Christian, like, what would your recommendation be? Like, I know you go to church, you volunteer. And so I talked to him. Like 2 days later, a buddy of mine, Carrie, you know Carrie Wiggin? Big Carrie?
The name sounds very familiar. I'm sure if I saw him.
Yeah, so he was a police officer. He's retired now. Just massive, massive dude. Comes up to me while we're working out. And he tells me, hey, man, like you've been on my heart. I don't know what you're doing, but something tells me you need to walk away from it. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm growing weed. That's what I'm doing. Like, so he has no idea that I'm growing weed. And I'm like, all right, cool. No big deal. But by now, it's like there's this conviction. Like a couple people have come up to me randomly and just kind of like asked questions that people normally didn't really ask of me, you know? And then I got this buddy who's telling me like, hey, like something's off in your life and you need to move away from it. So the next night I'm trimming weed in the room, doing my thing. And it's going to sound crazy, man, but like I just heard the voice of God. Not like an audible, like booming voice, but like a resounding voice inside me, like that I would call audible. And the message was really simple. You're wasting your gifts. Anybody can do what you're doing right now, which was trimming weed in a room, right? Anybody, like you don't gotta be smart. Anybody can sit down, fertilizer A, fertilizer B, mix them together, water plants, like it's literally a weed. But the message was, you're wasting your gifts. Anybody can do what you're doing right now, but not everybody has the ability to communicate, to speak, and to connect with people like you do. And that one got me, man. Like that was a very surreal like moment. Like set the scissors down, walk out into the house, like take a deep breath. Like, what the fuck just happened? Like, did I smoke too much of my own shit? Like, is it that good? Like, so I end up saying a prayer in my kitchen, like on the floor, right? And it's funny, I was telling this dude today about this, and I told him, like, I asked God for a miracle, but I felt so bad about it because there's a scripture that says only a wicked and perverse generation asks for a sign or a miracle. And this random stranger, he's like, brother, from everything you just said, you weren't asking for a miracle, you were asking for direction. He's like, it's totally okay to pray and ask for direction. He's like, matter of fact, you should be doing that. So all these years later, finally realized I'm not asking for a miracle. I'm asking for direction. So I'm praying on my kitchen floor. And I'm like, yo, God, check it out, man. Like, straight up, I need a miracle. Like, I need you to come through so I know that this is you 100%. Because what you're asking me to do is to chop it all down and to walk away from this. And I'm not ready to do that. Like, I smoke a lot of weed. I could have been really high. So I need a very far out type of miracle, right? And one of my good like spiritual mentors is this guy named Eric Thomas Wilson. Big old brother, dude, like massive arms. Okay, yeah. You know Eric?
Yeah, big guy.
So very spiritual guy. Had some really deep conversations with him about his faith. And he shared with me that he had heard the voice of the Holy Spirit before. So as I'm praying, I pray to God, like, hey, my buddy Eric, he lives down in, LA. I haven't seen him in 6 months. He doesn't know what I'm doing. If this is you and you're asking me to walk away from this, I need you to wake him up with the voice of the Holy Spirit tomorrow morning. And you put the message for me on his heart. And if he calls me, like, then I know we're good. So what's funny is at this moment, like back then, I had missed a payment on my cell phone, so my phone wasn't working, right? So I get to the gym that day, and I walk through the gym, and my phone connects to the Wi-Fi, and a text message comes through, and it's from Eric, and it says, "This morning I was awoken by the voice of the Holy Spirit proclaiming the word of the Lord."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it goes on. It's on my phone. I've taken screenshots of it, written it down, all that stuff, so I never lose it. But he goes on to talk about you need to operate in your Father's endlessness. There is no limit to his power, to the future, to your walk, and you need to operate in the knowledge that his endlessness is meant for you as well. And he finished it with, go forward, my brother. Mm. And so, like, I hit him up, and I'm like, bro, you won't even believe what I prayed last night. Like, I had to be woken up this morning. Like, that was me. I forget, like.
Wow, man.
So all the weed's in the trash now at this point.
Yeah, so I go home, and, dude, this is where it gets fucking crazy. I go home. After talking with Eric, I'm on cloud 9. Like, I'm vibing, right? I go home, chop everything down. Fucking done. Chop it all down, put it in a fucking bag, got it on my shoulder like Santa Claus, taking it out the front door to throw in the freaking garbage can. And here comes an all blacked out, dark charcoal gray Dodge Charger creeping down the street. And I can see through the front window, there's this burly ass dude with like fucking gloves on, like looks like he's got a vest on, some type of tactical something. The back window's cracked down like 4 or 5 inches, and there's a microphone and 3 cameras. It was
what?
Was it a gang officer or what?
No, so at the time I was working, so I was growing weed. And then I was also moonlighting at this place called Growmore, which people who would buy like marijuana products to grow it would go to. So I don't know if it was connected with working at Growmore, or I don't know if someone called in about a smell or whatever it happened to be. But at a previous job years ago, I did commercial refinancing in 03, 04. And our office building happened to be next to the Fresno Narcotics task force. And so the dudes showed us all their fucking cars, like the vans, the Chargers. They showed us where the cameras were, like all cut out on the side of the car, cut out in the front. It was cool shit. I mean,
yeah.
And we were doing commercial refinancing. These were just some detectives. And the way I talk to people, next thing you know, they're showing me all the shit on the car. So as the car goes by, I'm like, I know exactly what that car is. Like, I don't know why it's here, but I know what
You
what
got all
that
the
part
weed on
is.
your shoulder.
Bro, I got all chopped down. So I throw it all out, man, and shut the shop down, move back home. I hit my mom up, and I'm like, "You're not gonna believe this, but this is what went down. I'm not gonna be selling weed anymore. I'm giving it up. I kind of need to move home so I can go back to school. I'm already going to school, but I'm taking one class a semester, and I'm on track for the 20-year plan. And if I can come back, and live at home, I can take 20, 21 units a semester, and I'll have this knocked out in a few years." She broke down crying. Like, she was so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course she was, right? She was like, "Yeah,
Of course.
come on."
Well,
Yeah.
you're not selling weed.
Yeah. So that got me out of the weed business. And then I'm going back to school, and I'm going to church and all that good stuff. And I pretty much made a commitment to myself that anytime I didn't want to go to church or I didn't want to volunteer and I was asked, I would force myself to show up. So I started volunteering in the youth ministry. And then we had a youth pastor who like moved to another church. So we had an interim youth pastor, which happened to be my best friend from high school. So me and him kind of reconnected, and I was helping with the youth ministry. And that led into a few times like speaking for like kids and then speaking for the church. And then I got to be one of the adult chaperones on the mission down to Mexicali. So, and that got me kind of like plugged back into church and everything, you know what I mean? So it was cool.
I mean, that's
What are you
really
doing
cool.
now?
So, yeah, what are you doing now? Like,
What
what are you doing now?
I went back to school. First, I was going to be a nurse, but obviously that's not the route I went. So I go to City College. I start my associates in kinesiology because an AST will get me a spot in Fresno State, which is impacted. So if you go to City College, get AST associates to transfer, that's a guaranteed spot at Fresno State. So I complete my AST, transfer to Fresno State into the kinesiology program, thinking that the moment I can jump to nursing, I'm jumping to nursing. So I end up getting a bachelor's of science in kinesiology and exercise science, right? Exercise phys. I have the opportunity to work in a cardiac rehab unit. So I do that for like 8 months. End up kind of like falling in love with the whole helping people get healthy, get back on their feet, the hospital atmosphere. So I decided to pursue a master's degree. In my master's degree, not the normal life. So I'm in the master's program. Life is good. And then 2018 rolls around. Mind you, I started in 2017. I had at 36 years old. So I start my master's program. In 2018, one of our best friends ends up dying in a snowboarding accident. And the group is just really hit by that. A few more months down the road, I end up getting a viral infection. And I end up like almost dying in the middle of the summer. I end up in the hospital for 9 days with 108-degree fever. So this is 2018. So because of that fever, I end up having to drop out for a semester because my body was not recovering. I went from weighing 260 pounds to 228 pounds in 30 days. My bench press went from 225 for 28 reps to 12 reps. It was very humbling. And technically, I think I was still stronger back then than I am now. So the spring 2019 rolls around, and my graduate director reaches out. She's like, "Yo, like, I know you love doing stuff with your church. I know you love public speaking and strength and conditioning. We have an opportunity for one of our graduate students to intern with the Air Force ROTC detachment." She's like, "If you would like to do that, we would love to help you do that." So at the time, I'm teaching biomechanics classes at Fresno State as part of my graduate program. So I take this on, dude, end up falling in love with these cadets. Like instantly realized like I was meant to be a cop. I was meant like this is where I was supposed to be. Right. So I interned with them, goes incredibly well. They asked me to come back in the fall. And so that's what started. And I currently still am the exercise physiologist and strength coach for the detachment over there. So an internship turned into a volunteer gig, which I've continued since then. But the crazy thing is, inside of that time period, we get a new lieutenant colonel from Honolulu, this guy named Colonel Ladd, right? So he comes from 12 years of special operations and 7 years as a fighter pilot. And so this guy ends up taking over the detachment. I meet him and it's like an instant romance. Like I shake his hand and I just had that moment where it's like, God just tapped my shoulder and he was like, this dude will change your life. And so that's 2019. And in 2019, I also start working with Pinnacle Systems locally. So they contract with first responders. So I'm a strength and performance coach with the Clovis Police Department and Fresno Fire. And I'm teaching the biomechanics classes, and now I'm doing this Air Force thing. Then COVID comes around, right? So that job goes away. I'm still doing the thing with the Air Force. And then May 24th, I'm in a fatality motorcycle accident.
You're in a fatality motorcycle accident?
Correct. Yes.
Means you hit someone in a motorcycle.
Yeah. I was on my motorcycle. The other person was on a bicycle. And they entered the roadway. We collided. They went airborne for 63 yards. They ended up dying on the scene. It's out on Aubrey Road, out in the country. So it literally took an ambulance like half an hour to get there. It was pretty shitty experience, to be honest. So inside of 18 months, I almost died twice. Once from a fever and then from this motorcycle accident.
Wow.
And so I'm out on the motorcycle accident happens, and this is just like I'm on the scene. Like I'm the first one to get to the guy. Like he is in really bad condition. Luckily, a physician shows up, starts treatment. I'm able to like step away. Bunch of shit goes down. The highway patrol guy calls me over, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "You see this line right here?" And it's like going up the mountain. So where we collided, I pushed the bike hard left, right? So I tried to get out in front of him. And unfortunately, I thought I cleared him, dude. Like I pushed hard left, man. I thought I missed him, and it turns out like I hit him dead on. My bike, the trajectory of the bike was going up and over a cliff. Like there was a barbed wire fence and a drop off at the top. And I'm on a 2017-18 Aprilia RSV4 Italian race bike. You can watch the tread go up the mountain and it takes a hard right at the very top, like a 90-degree turn. And so the officer tells me, he's like, "I don't know if you believe in God, but I've been doing this for a while and you should have died right there." That unfortunately puts me in a pretty bad position. I get PTSD. I end up smoking a shit ton of weed, drinking, like anything not to deal with what's going on.
Right.
I get served with search warrants. They come to my home. They take the bike. They take the bike parts. They do all of that. I get told that they launch an investigation. They're looking at vehicular manslaughter, which carries a minimum of 7 years. Right. And so obviously I get a lawyer, all that stuff. I end up getting sued for wrongful death. It takes the CHP 10 months to close the case and rule that I was not at fault and it was the bicyclist. Unfortunately, though, I got the PTSD, smoking a shit ton of weed, eating gummy bears till like 2 a.m. and just playing Call of Duty, bro. Call of Duty. And honestly, Call of Duty probably saved my life because it was COVID. The gyms were closed. Like, my best friends had kids. Like, they're not trying, like, everyone's staying home. And so I find a group
You're
of guys.
isolated.
I'm isolated. I'm by myself. I'm having some pretty suicidal thoughts. So I'm like, you know what? So I just pour myself into video games and smoking weed. Better than the alternative.
Definitely. I just think about the isolation you had when you were a kid, when you were going through the things when you were a kid, and now you're an adult, so you can do more with that isolation as far as more self-harm as opposed to just running away and isolating like you did when you was a kid.
You know what's crazy, man, is the same trauma responses came back. I lived in a 2,100 square foot home. I didn't leave my room for like a month. I eventually left the living area of my room to go use the bathroom, and that was after like 3 days. And I was like pissing in jars when the toilet was like 40 feet away. Like crazy shit, dude. Because I felt so comfortable in a closed space. Like the door was locked, my back's against the wall. Like I'm in control of this environment. Like there's nothing that's gonna fuck with me.
So you were in prison once again. You were touching both walls before, and now you imprisoned yourself in your own home. So how did you overcome that trauma? And have you dealt with that trauma, or did you just forget it?
No, again, man, too fortunate. These guys, so it was over the summer, and I reached out to, obviously, my friends, family members, told everyone what happened. And I reached out to the colonel. He was the lieutenant colonel back then. And so I explained what happened. And next thing you know, a group of cadets hits me up and they're like, hey, Mr. Hatcher, we were wondering if you want to go to church, wondering if you want to go hiking. We just see if we can get you out of the house. And then next thing you know, Lieutenant Colonel Ladd, he's like, hey, man, I need you to show up next semester and teach these classes for the cadets. He's like, can I count on you? And I'm like, yeah. And looking back, I realize now he was giving me things to do because he recognized what I was going through. And we were probably in like October or November. And this was like, shit, man, this was probably like closer to 2021. And he just pulls me aside and he's like, hey, man, so in special operations, we got a thing. Like if you get knocked down, like it's okay to stay down for a little bit. Nobody's going to tell you to get up because of what you've been through. But I'm going to tell you right now, you need to get up. Like there's shit you need to do. We need you to come back to work. Get up. And it's a thing. Like they'll only let you stay down so long and then they come and get you up. And so that just kind of kick-started some good forward movement and progress. And so I started more interactions with cadets, teaching more classes, more health and fitness stuff, writing programs, helping lead PTs. And then I got COVID in November, December 2021. It was like December, right? And I'm still pretty depressed. Like the motorcycle accident took like 18 months just like away from me, like in an instant. I had a traumatic brain injury. So like I was very paranoid. I thought people were against me. Like it wasn't the best time. But then I got COVID and I'm just down and out for like 2 weeks. And this rolls into January 1st, 2022. And after getting over COVID, man, I was sitting at like 255 pounds. I had ballooned up to 283 after my motorcycle accident. And so
a good 283 or just the. Because Steven's been 280 before, and he
no.
He's playing Call of Duty, gummy bears and drinking, smoking weed. 280.
I don't think it was your 280, Steven. I don't think he looked like you, man.
No, you can go check my Instagram. I got a pin. I had some titties, bro. Like, yeah, I had the dicky do, bro. That's part of my act too. I tell people like, don't tell me you're not confident looking down when you don't see your dick. Like I had the belly. I know when you look down and you see a big white hairy mass, that don't do nothing for it. But when you look down and see your shit, you're like, all right,
like all right, yeah, all right, yeah.
We're back on
Hey.
track. 2022. You got COVID. You
So
blew it up.
something clicked.
280. You're 255 now. What's going on?
So January 1st, 2022, something clicks after I get done with COVID, man. And I'm just like, I can't live like this. Like, I can't do this. I got to get back into shape. And so I just take everything I've learned in my life, like all the traumas I've gone through, and I just start applying to my life the things that made me happy, the things that made me feel good about myself. And so literally I went back to being a little kid. Like I got up every morning, went outside, and I stood in the sun, like barefoot, like in the grass, getting that morning sunshine, like resetting that circadian rhythm. I started working out twice a day, making sure I'm doing my cardio outside, hitting the weights in the garage gym because the gyms are still open and closed and stuff like that. And I just started implementing these little habits into my life. And when I was working with Pinnacle, I started a program called One Small Change. And the idea is you just add one habit a week, one small change, like getting up and standing in the sun. And then the next week, it's you get up, stand in the sun, and drink some water. And you just keep adding healthy habits, right? And you kind of like reconstruct your life. So knowing that's what I was doing for people anyway, I just started applying that to myself. And I'm like, you're going to get up in the morning, you're going to stretch. You're going to make sure you're outside in the sun. You're going to do a mile walk or a mile jog. You know, you're going to go to the gym. You're going to start counting your macros again. And I just documented that whole entire process. Now, at this point, I got the COVID money coming in, right? So I'm unemployed, which, by the way, unemployed and in a dark spot is not where you want to be. At least with employment, you got 8 hours to do some other shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so we're in 2022. We get to the end of 2022, and I just feel like, man, at a minimum, because I'm thinking, what can I do for money? And I'm like, well, shit. Like at a minimum, you can apply to be a teacher. You got a master's degree. You know, like, well, why am I Ubering right now and door dashing? You know what I mean? Like,
With a
so
master's degree.
Yeah. So then I get into personal training just because the money's better.
Yeah.
And that opens up, you know, some financial opportunities, and I get some good clients. And then in September of, let's see, was it September 2022? Yeah, September 2022, my uncle ends up passing away.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was rough because he was the one that was big on my sobriety and like was always in the AA and all that stuff. And that just hit me, you know, again, you losing someone close, man. And I found myself like kind of falling back to those old habits. So I immediately put an end to falling back to the old habits because I just wanted to go drink, you know? Like any time in my life, there's been major issues. It's like alcohol's that one friend that just always is there for you type thing. So I get into the personal training. I get some good clients. I'm sharing with my uncle about how I'm helping people change their lives and the work I'm doing with the cadets and the stuff in the Air Force. And I just feel like there's a calling, like maybe a position like a strength coach in the military or something like that. And so I'm still doing the things with the cadets. The personal training thing starts rolling, starts taking off. We come into January 2023, and now I have my in-person clients, and I got a group of guys, the same group of guys I played Call of Duty with all through COVID. Now all of them have just watched me lose some weight, and they're like, we want to do that. Mm-hmm. So next thing you know, I got some people sending me a little bit of cash to do some programming. So I start an online business doing strength programs, fat loss programs. And then my friend, Colonel Ladd, he gets back from Afghanistan, right? So my friend, Lieutenant Colonel, gets promoted to full-bird colonel. And he gets tapped to lead the Afghan withdrawal. And so him and his team move 107,000 refugees out of the country. He comes back and he's like, bro, I need to talk to you. Like, I'm not in a good spot. He put on some weight. He's sitting at about 205 pounds. He's got some PTSD issues he's dealing with. And unfortunately, things on the home front aren't looking that good. And so we have some pretty deep conversations, more his testimony than mine. So we have some deep conversations. Um, and pretty much I tell him, listen, man, like, this is what worked for me. I think it might work for you. So like, I'll write your programs. I'll tell you what to do. Like, we got to get up early in the morning, push-ups every day. And over the course of a year, he goes from 205 to 172 pounds. Is ripped, just like chiseled, bro. And he hits me up and he's like, man, what you did for me, there's a lot of people in the military, there's a lot of first responders who, like men, who are in the dark, who are very close to making one wrong decision. He's like, and I think this program, I think you got what it takes to pull those guys out of the dark. And so that started this whole lifestyle kind of coaching that I do now. And I got a group of like 11 people online. Most of them are in the military. Some of them have issues with PTSD, and guys from security forces to fighter pilots. And it's really been cool. Like, the journey's been really awesome. And I hope in the future to create some type of, to brand myself, create a business. And I want to help as many men as possible get aligned with their faith and aligned with the purpose of their creation, man. I just want to build lighthouses, dude. And yeah, because, dude, I tell my guys, the deeper and darker your trauma, the brighter and further your light will shine and be seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's funny. I love that, looking back at your story, right? They say every test is a testimony. You've been through a lot of tests.
A whole lot of them. A
And
whole
now you
lot
got
of
the answers, though, too, for other people. You had to find the answers, but I love that now you look back at your life and you see everything you went through was for a purpose, and now you can help those other men. And the irony of it all that I laugh about, your mom was a master's degree teacher, your dad's a master's degree teacher. Look at you. You got a master's degree and you are teaching people now. You are a teacher and a leader in a different way. So you're almost riding the ship, and maybe it was your destiny all along, but I love to see that you are teaching and reading. And I love the lighthouse analogy. I mean, you sound like someone, when me and Will launched Post Peak Chronicles up in Central California, I want you to be part of it because I love your vision. I love your story. Yes, and who else could be a credible messenger than someone that has your story, right, Will?
Man, 100%. It was definitely a pleasure just to go along this journey with you and to see the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. And like you say, the trauma that you experience gives a brighter light at the end of it, right? And that you shining bright. You are definitely shining bright.
Dude,
well, Sean, before we leave, how can somebody reach out to you that maybe wants to work with you online or in person?
All right. Well, two things. One real quick thought, man. If you happen to be going through something in life and you got some trauma, you got some darkness, whatever it is, man, you have two options. You can cultivate it or you can be consumed by it. If you choose to cultivate your trauma and you do it correctly, it will give you the power, the strength, the resilience, the courage that you need to go back into the darkness and pull somebody out. But if you allow yourself to be consumed by that grief, by that trauma, and you happen to be a man, chances are it's not going to end good. You're probably going to check out before you're supposed to, and you're going to leave behind a lot of people that love you. So if you happen to hear this, you can cultivate it or you can be consumed by it. And I highly encourage you to cultivate it. And I think a perfect example is anytime you see like the fentanyl crisis. We have mothers out there who lose their children to fentanyl, and they go down that dark hole and they become addicts, and they end up on the streets or worse. And then we have moms that lose that child and they're at Congress. You know what I mean? Like, they're writing legislation, they're pounding on people's doors. Like, they're cultivating that to make sure that nobody experiences it again. So you got to cultivate whatever trauma or darkness you have, or you'll be
Yes,
consumed by it.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
if you're trying to get a hold of me, you can find me on Instagram. It's Hatcher, Hatcher, Sean, Sean. And that's my main way of people getting in touch with me. Or shit, you can even text me, 559-765-1019.
And you know what? I wanna reciprocate that to you, Sean. Now that I'm in Fresno, if you go through a dark moment, you got my number. Hit me up. I'm always available too.
Bro, I appreciate that, man, because dude, iron sharpens iron, and you can't just have one or two men in your corner. Yeah, boy.
Yep, I see it.
You need multiple men in your corner, man, because even with myself, I have good friends like from the 3rd grade, right? I'm the only one that's single. They all have little kids, children. So like the other day, like I just hit somebody up because I was bored, and nobody got back to me because everyone was busy. So it's good for men to have a group of like-minded men that they can sharpen those tools off of. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that, man.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Agreed.
We
Well, man,
appreciate you.
this has been one of our better podcasts this season, and your light has shined through this whole interview, your positivity, and you've been through some stuff. You know what I mean?
A lot.
It's not like you just have like, oh, I did 9 days in jail. I mean, you may have not done the time, but you've done a lot of the crimes. You know what I mean? You've got a definite story that might be more loaded than the guys who have done 10 years because they made one mistake. You've made many mistakes. And so I just love to hear it. I love to hear what you're doing. I love the analogies you use. I love how you're giving back and walking in your calling as a man, and you want to encourage other people to do that. Before we close, Will, you want to say anything?
No, I just want to say, man, a lot. A lot, but it was definitely a pleasure, man. It was definitely a pleasure hearing your story and seeing you shine that light, because honestly, just your personality is so, I feel like it's so similar to mine, it's so similar to mine. It's just you have this ability to connect with people, and I'm saying that's the gift that I've been given from God, and that's one thing that I realized. Stephen knows this new journey that I'm on. Like, everything that is me is a gift from God, and that is truly a gift from God. So you've been blessed, and you continue to use that to bless others. So thank you,
man. I really appreciate you guys, dude, because like I think I mentioned to Stephen earlier, like the last few months I've been having these conversations with people just walking up to me, completely opening up. A few guys that have done some serious time, like 21, 23 years type thing. And I just think they're divine appointments, because for me, building this business right now, right? Like I just got hit with a bunch of financial stuff. Heater went out, dog got sick, just life. And for me, when my finances start to go south, because I grew up in a family that was very financially oriented, I associate my worth with my income. And I'm working very hard to break that. But when my finances get hit, it's like a little attack from the devil or something too. And it gets me thinking, maybe I should go apply over here. Maybe I should just put that application in Costco real quick, push some carts, because at least that's consistency and money that was guaranteed to show up. And so these little interactions and these conversations, man, they just keep watering those seeds that God planted, that, this is your calling. This is the path you need to go down. And it comes right back to that prayer in the kitchen that day where I'm like just asking for a little direction. It's been a few years, but he's still dropping those breadcrumbs to let me know which way to go. So
absolutely,
I appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you, man. Well, once again, I'm Steven.
And I'm Will, and this is the Post Peak
Chronicles.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.